Yo, what up, Night Nation? Had to make a video on Jaylon Robinson transferring. Anytime there's a really big player that transfers, McKenzie, DG, got to make a video about it. And make no mistake about it. Flash is an extremely important player and a big loss in the portal. First off, thoughts are that there was rumors of him transferring after last season. He wasn't happy. Obviously missed a lot of the year with injury. But it seemed to reconcile. And over the spring looked happy. Him and Ryan O'Keefe were talking about being one of the best duos in college football for wide receivers. Seemed to be gelling, and seemed to be happy at UCF. But this comes as a surprise, but not a total surprise because there had been rumors floating around that he was going to transfer. But it does appear that he kind of used the spring game, and maybe faked being happy at UCF. I don't know that, but it used the spring game to kind of propel himself, and get some more tape on him. Obviously, he looked good, had a couple touchdowns, to propel himself and make him more marketable in the transfer portal. So I think there's a common reaction that we see when big players, star players like a DG, like a Jaylon transfer. And there's either positive or negative. The positive ones, obvious, like, oh, great for him, go kill it somewhere else, blah, cool, mature response. Then there's the negative response, which is kind of broken down into a couple different ways. One is the tendency to say, oh, well, we're so deep at the position, we didn't really need him. Then there's well, he was probably moving down the depth chart and other guys were emerging, so that's why he transferred. And, to address those, first of all, the reason that we have depth at wide receiver, part of the reason is Jaylon Robinson. What makes you deep is having multiple stars at the position. So when you lose a player of Robinson's caliber, you are no longer as deep. And don't get me wrong, UCF has some good players and has some great players at wide receiver. But losing your number two, number three, if you want to call number three receiver, 100% hurts your depth. I don't care that we have depth behind them. Your number two receiver is part of that depth. It makes you good. And what really top teams have is they have multiple Jaylon Robinsons. So, and their number four, their number five guys are also like Jaylon Robinson. And that, not every team is like that. Obviously, the Alabamas, Clemson's, Ohio State's of the world are like that. But what makes you good is having multiple stars, a Jaylon Robinson, a Ryan O'Keefe. So when you lose one, especially for UCF that isn't Alabama or Ohio State, that doesn't have their 5 and 6 and 7 string guys aren't number ones, it's going to hurt your depth. So make no mistake about this, losing Jaylon is a big loss. It's a big loss for UCF and the wide receiver depth. Now, that being said, it does open up new opportunities for younger guys that haven't had playing time in the past. I mean, we've seen this time and time again with UCF. Perfect example, Marlon Williams. Didn't get a lot of playing time because we had so many star receivers. Then he absolutely broke out his junior and senior year and became one of our best receivers, or was our best receiver that year. We've seen it with a lot of younger guys that don't get playing time until their sophomore or whatever junior year, and then they break out. Ryan O'Keefe, perfect example, broke out last year in his junior season, now is our best receiver. So obviously that can happen. We can have guys, there's a lot of talk about Jalen Griffin being, the next guy. Deontay Marks, Jordan Johnson. Sure, maybe a freshman coming in, Quan Lee, Xavier Townsend. Maybe they become the next UCF star receiver because of the emptiness or the void left by Jaylon opens up a new opportunity. That can absolutely happen. But the problem that I see is that we lost a proven guy. If we're being realistic, how many proven wide receivers does UCF have right now? Ryan O'Keefe, Jaylon Robinson, and Kobe Hudson were the three. So now when you lose Flash, it's two proven receivers. I'm not knocking the talent of Amari Johnson. I'm not knocking the talent of Jordan Johnson. I'm not knocking the talent of Jalen Griffin. But it's all hypothetical until they prove it on the field. Amari looked great in the spring game. The coach has been raving about Griffin. But until they prove it on the field, we now are down to two proven receivers. And we saw what happened last year when Flash went down with injury. They were force-feeding Ryan O'Keefe and Brandon Johnson. That's all we had last year at receiver. No one else was really doing much. barely, if you look at the catches, pretty much every other receiver was under 10 catches besides those two. Obviously, and then, Alec Holler at tight end had a good amount, but we're talking about wide receivers. So losing someone like Flash now gives us down to two proven receivers, one of them who wasn't even with UCF last year. So I do see that as a problem. Robinson was a star for UCF. It was a huge get when we got him from Oklahoma, had to sit out of years before the transfer portal. A huge get for UCF when we actually first got him. And, 2020 broke out, was our second leading receiver in yards, touchdowns, catches, right behind Marlon, and had an excellent year. And then last year he was set to be, number one or number two, and then unfortunately had a knee injury and missed most of the year and never got into a rhythm. But obviously we saw the spring game, the talent when he was healthy. So there's no other way to say this other than it's a big loss. I had a lot of people messaging me saying we'll be fine. We have other depth pieces. He was maybe moving down. I'm not saying we won't be fine. I'm not saying that someone else might not emerge. But when you lose one of your best players at the position, there's no other way of saying, okay, you're just no longer as deep anymore. That's just a fact. And I do see that as a pretty big loss. I mean, his speed, his route running were all elite. And we saw that in 2020. So obviously, I think it's a big loss for UCF. And now I am hoping one of the freshmen emerge. I mean, obviously, we've seen Gus's recruits. They're highly recruited, they're highly rated, they're highly touted. So maybe a guy like a Quan Lee comes in and is a star right away. We've seen freshmen like Gabe Davis be a star right from the jump. And obviously, an Amari Johnson gets a bigger role now. Maybe it's Deontay Marks, Jalen Griffin. And I am comfortable with Ryan O'Keefe being a number one and Jalen Griffin being a number two or Kobe Hudson being a number two or number three. I like that, but obviously you want more at the position. Injuries, it's football. Anything can happen. More transfers can leave. The injuries can happen in the middle of the year. Now, that being said, also, the fact that spring is over, you're going to see another rash of transfers in the portal around the country. So if Gus does feel like he needs to bring in someone else, I'm sure we'll have an opportunity to get another receiver like we got a Kobe Hudson. So Jaylon Robinson is replaceable, but it's hard to lose a proven star like that was going to contribute this year. Was going to be a difference maker. I don't know why he transferred. I thought he really liked UCF. Maybe it had something to do with DG. I did notice that all of the Oklahoma coaches started following Flash again, so he may end up full circle back at Oklahoma, follow DG there. I know he was really close friends with him. So that, maybe it has something to do with that, not meshing with the current coaching staff because he wasn't recruited by them, and we've seen that now with star players, Tatum Bethune, DG, Jaylon. It's common with when new coaching staffs come in and it's not their guys, you may not gel with them. A lot of players want to play for a coach, not necessarily the school. That's just a fact. And then, of course, with the ease of the transfer portal now, it makes it really easy for guys to get out if they're unhappy. So, it's a big loss for UCF. It's unfortunate. I do think we'll be fine. We have a lot of talent at wide receiver, as we always do. It's always one of our top positions. We just got to see guys prove it this year in the field. We got to see guys, step up and emerge, which I think will happen. But, to address this, my overall thoughts, I do feel like it's a big loss for UCF. Wish Flash the best, but it's definitely, it sucks. It's a big loss. Wish he would have finished his career at UCF. All right, go Knights.